You're listening to Oilersnation Radio, presented by the Nation Network. Subscribe for free on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Thank you very much, Elisa. Oilersnation Radio, episode 140, coming to you on a Tuesday, because we're doing playoff episodes, baby. Oilers are out. Oilers are out. You know what? We're going to get into this for a second. This is the first episode we were going to do as a bonus episode of ONR. We said we're going to do 2 a week throughout the playoffs. The first time that we get to do one. It's like, fucking what the hell? But we'll get to that. This is the debrief episode on what just happened, what we watched, what went wrong. We're going to get to all of it. But first, I want to start off by shouting out our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant. Follow them on Instagram at SherwoodFord_the Giant and on Twitter at Sherwood Ford. Gentlemen, I don't know what to say. If you had asked me a week ago about whether I thought it was a realistic possibility that the Edmonton Oilers, I'm not saying lose the series. Of course, that's a possibility, but get swept by the Winnipeg Jets. If you had told me that this was going to happen a week ago, as we started planning to do playoff editions of ONR, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have believed you. And the fact that it happened in the way it did, we're not talking about a team that got lit up like the Blues did against Colorado. We're talking about a team that lost 3 consecutive overtimes. Every game was a 1-goal game. I know there was 2 empty netters in game 1, 4-1 finish, but for all intents and purposes, that was a 2-1 game. Where do we start? Tyler, how do we start making sense of this?
It's honestly, it was such a mind-blowing 6 days of hockey that it's hard to wrap your head around it, right? Like, it's kind of, they lost 4 1-goal games. They lost 3 straight overtime games. How does that happen? Possession wise, all that, like all the numbers say they were the better team. My eyes say they were the better team. And most of those, it ended up being 16 or 17 periods of hockey over 4 games. They were the better team for most of them. It's hard to sit there right now and kind of go, yeah, like, I don't know. I just can't make sense of it. I'm honestly at a loss for words still. And I've been trying to talk about this thing all day. And like you said, like if you would have told me a week ago this was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed you. It didn't even seem like a realistic possibility at all. But playoff hockey comes and there's a lot of luck in this sport. And the Oilers had none of it.
Well, it's interesting. Like we're doing this right now at 1:00 on Tuesday, May 25th, the day after the triple OT loss. And it's a weird feeling because right now we could be sitting here and the series could be 3-1 Oilers. It could be 2-2. It could be, 3-1 for the Jets. Any combination of 4 games could be possible based on the series that we just watched. And the fact that the Oilers, like Tyler said, got no luck. They didn't get a friendly bounce anywhere. And Connor Hellebuck stands on his head. And the list goes on and on. It's just, I don't know how you make sense of what we watched. Dan?
Yeah, it's to take nothing away from the Winnipeg Jets, and I think that's one thing that I think
they played well. I don't think anybody should take anything away from them.
Exactly, and I think all Oiler fans can feel that way. And it's the team played the best hockey that they could for more of the series than the Winnipeg Jets did. They played their best game in game 4, and they played it for almost 2 entire games in game 4. Calls could have gone our way, puck bounces could have gone our way, but the Winnipeg Jets, they played well when they had to. They were opportunistic when they had to be. Their goaltending was great when it had to be. And they shut down the 2 best players for at least 2 games of the series. You can say that they pretty soundly, they played Draisaitl and McDavid pretty darn well. So yeah, it's a bit of a numb feeling. It's definitely a confusing feeling. But like you said, Bag Milk, it's it could be 3-1 Jets right now. It could be 2-2. It could be 3-1 Oilers. That's just the way it goes sometimes in playoff hockey. You throw out the regular season, all the old adages come into play, and we're looking at, what was a false sweep of a sense that, when you say that the Blues and the Oilers got swept, it's two very different storylines. Yeah. And you can kind of rest your hat on that. It doesn't make it feel any better because we're still out of the playoffs at the end of the day. But after today's show, we start to look forward and start to plan for Mission 22.
Well, we're going to talk about the sweeps and comparing sweeps like Dan mentioned, because I don't know how many people listening to this right now were able to watch much of that Blues Avalanche series, but this was not that. Rick, you went on a little spirit mission on I guess that would have been Sunday night. Saw you wandering off into the distance. What do you, I mean, we've watched a lot of bad Oilers teams. We've watched a lot of losses, but this one it feels different, doesn't it?
Yeah, this one hurts more. Like last year hurt. Last year, when they lost in 5 to Chicago or whatever the hell it was. I remember after that game, that was terrible. This one is, there's just so many emotions at once, and I think that you have to try and pull yourself back and figure out which ones are the more logical ones. And I want to overreact. I want to sit here and scream and punch things and yell, but I mean, dude, it was a couple of bad bounces, and I know that sounds like it's an excuse or something like that, but it literally was just a couple of bad bounces, and I don't think we played as well as we can. We did leave something out there, maybe not in game 4, but I do think we could have been better in game 1 and 2. I do think there was a better lineup to ice in games 1 and 2. I think there's a level of culpability on 95% of the people in the organization. And I think there's some people that need to look in the mirror and find a way to be better. And there's some that are looking around going, we can't do this all on our own. And I mean, that's from guys with skates on to guys with dress shoes. Like I said, I didn't like the way the lineups for game 1 and 2. Game 3, you saw a different team. I think it was just a better lineup for what we needed in the playoffs. And I think he was a little too conservative, and we still made mistakes on the ice. The Bear cough up with it, was super duper shitty. And, some of the ones that got past Smith, I'm not blaming them, but, they weren't the greatest goals that, that exact play at the other end of the ice was kept to the net by Hellebuck. So, as angry and upset and everything I am, I'm trying to sit back and not overreact and realize, all the underlying numbers here. Said we were the better team. If you watch the game, I think for the most part, we were the better team. I can't explain the outcomes.
I think that's fair to be at a loss for words right now. Like, it was just fucked up, man. Like in game 1, if Toninato doesn't just barely touch that puck, what happens? You never know. Game 2, if they get one bounce offensively, that game's different. In game 3, I'm going to say, but if Josh Archibald doesn't take that penalty, they walk out of that game with a 4-2 win. And in the last game, if Ethan Bear doesn't throw that puck up the middle, do they walk out of that game with a 3-2 win? Like, there was these little kind of shitty moments in every game that was like, damn, like, they got the little 50-50 bounce and Edmonton didn't get it once. It was like Edmonton went and lost 4 roulette spins in a row.
56 games in the regular season. You line up Leon Draisaitl in front of the net like he did in, I think it was overtime 2. You're going that way. Overtime 2. Wide open in the slot. Puck comes to him. One-timer. Missed the net. Did not happen in the regular season. Darnell came down 2 shifts before that or something like that. Got one on the right wing and had a great opportunity at a shot over the crossbar. So many things that happened in the playoffs were not what happened in the regular season. No words. There's nothing. There's no positive spins. There's no positive spins. There's no nothing. There is a level of the guys just have to look back and say we failed.
Yeah,
that's it. There are no excuses. No excuses.
I look at like, to kind of expand on what you're saying, Rick, too. Like, Connor McDavid dangles into the zone, slides into the middle of the ice in the slot area, and gets that shot off. He scores that 25% of the time in the playoff or in the regular season. Those pucks hit sticks almost every damn time that he took that shot. And, you know, you got to give credit to the Jets for that too. I mentioned it. I just feel like that was some of the best stick work I've ever seen from a team in a 4-game stretch.
He can't keep trying to go in there. And dude, like he's the greatest player on the face of this earth. But that last goal started from a turnover in their end. It was on his stick, didn't get it deep, didn't get it past the defenseman. At that point, if anybody wants to sit here and say, and I'm in a couple of chat groups and buddies, and they started lighting up Ethan Bear for this, dude, it's not on Bear. You're at a long change. You need to go at the right the gamble. When Connor McDavid has the puck along the boards that low, that's a hell of a gamble. I'm rolling in every time. Go make the change. Go make the change. Turned over. There it goes.
The tying goal was a collection of errors.
And the tying goal was fucked up.
And it's unfortunate because I also think that 9 times out of 10, Ethan Bear just rips it off the glass, or he just high lob up, you know what I mean, to get it out. He got punished for it. And that was another thing where the Jets were able to capitalize on those turnovers, whereas the Oilers were not at the other end of the ice. You know what I mean? Because there was plenty of times when the Jets gave up the puck, but again, we just didn't have the luck. We didn't have the confidence that we had in the regular season. It's like Rick said, give Leon Draisaitl a one-timer from the slot like that, he does not miss the net. And the fact that he did is it's mind-blowing. Darnell Nurse, he had an open corner on the top glove side over by about a foot. Like, that doesn't happen. It's just like everybody was gripping the stick a little bit. Like, everybody on this podcast loves Yamamoto. Nobody will ever question his work ethic, his drive, his puck pursuit, all of that shit. But like, the guy is never going to score another goal. You know what I mean? It's just, I did not care about the slump at the season, because I was like, last game or two, whatever, he's going to get 1, 2, whatever, and the playoffs not going to be an issue. Got to last game, still didn't score a goal. That's okay. He'll get it. He's going to pop one in this is one of those storybook things. You know, he's going to go however many games, go right into the playoffs, and bang, he gets one, and all of a sudden he's got 14, and Pisani's giving him the key to the city. Like, it's.
Look at Cassian.
I don't know, man. There's a
lot of it.
Cassian on the opposite post. Nuge finds him in like a set play, and he can't even shovel that puck. He couldn't even lay down on the ice and shoot that puck in the net.
That one killed me.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
I think it was game 3 that Jesse Puljujärvi is set up on the side, and Leon, I think it is, puts it right across the crease for him. Nuge thought it was Tim, just barely gets a splinter of his stick on it, throws it off, gets away from Puljujärvi. That's 2-1 all of a sudden in the series. Like, it's just, there's so many stupid little things. And this is one thing I think why I really dislike analytics, because I get it, but they're frustrating. Everyone tells me the numbers will work themselves out. Well, guys,
they don't always.
I'm still waiting.
Well, I mean,
the
problem is they do, but in a 4-game sample, they don't. It's just like flipping a coin. Generally speaking, the probability of flipping a coin is 50%, but you can go on a run and fucking 10 heads in a row. But over the long term, they generally do. But in a 4-game sample, man, that sucks. That blows. And it's just
that's not just 4 games to me. That's how many shifts is that?
Well, but like, even you look at our own end of the net, Smith had 2 or 3 goals where he had an open look at the shot and it wasn't deflected where the puck went in. And that's it. That's all you can ask for from your goalie. Every time that he got a goal scored on him, they'd go back to the clip and there was a slight deflection, like the Tonatino.
I was just going to say, there was a fucking the Jets scored a ton of deflection goals in this series.
Yep. Game one goal one was off his chest. He dropped the puck.
He had some weak ones, but he also had and that's why, like, because I get it, Rick. Like, it's frustrating when
they weren't weak. They're just one seed.
Well,
the other goaltender stopped. Yeah, the other
and that's why it's frustrating. But like, Mike Smith also probably had to make more 10 Bell saves than Hellebuck.
No blame at all. Yeah. I'm not trying to put a blame on one guy. I'm just saying it's spread out amongst everybody. I'm sorry, Connor coughed it up there. Leon didn't score on his. Darnell played, a week and a half in one game, and he missed one over the net. Schmitty, as good as he was, and I loved him when he played the puck, and even that one cough up in the corner didn't even make my heart skip a beat. Didn't bother me at one bit. Yeah. But
It affected it. Something quickly. Darnell Nurse, 60 whatever minutes in Game 4, turns around, has a baby the next day as well, or flies back, I believe, for his fiance to have the baby. Like
he said something about FaceTime. He said something about FaceTime, so I don't know where he was. But that's a long bus ride.
What a 24 hours for Darnell Nurse, almost setting an NHL record for minutes played in a hockey game and then becoming a dad.
And doing it in a lot less time than other defensemen have done it, right? Like he played.
Yeah, and one massive kick to the dick in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he played. That's a hell of an almost record. And fantastic. Yeah, his first child. That's fantastic. But I'm right between that 12-second area. It's a massive kick to the dick.
But I also want to say, I got to say that I was like, I get cutting minutes after mistakes. I get it. But I got to say, I thought it was odd that Tippett shortened. I get shortening the bench too, but like 4 defensemen and letting Darnell run for 4.5 minute shifts is just like, that's eventually going to burn you. A person cannot play that much hockey. This sport, we're not fucking talking about baseball, man. We're not talking about golf. And it didn't necessarily hurt them per se, but you're also not helping either.
Exactly. At some point, you're no longer punishing the Klima. At some point, you're not the Peter Klima. At some point, you're no longer punishing the player that is the one that you're benching. You're starting to punish the guys that are having to play in their stead, as my dogs start to wrestle in the background. But you're right, Bag Milk. At some point, that's on Darnell Nurse now, who's played 60 minutes in the game. And Rick, you're also right. It didn't cost us in the meantime, but it was a struggle.
I would say it didn't help.
I think my defense for that will be when your season is on the line and you're in overtime. Like Dave Tippett didn't know that game was going 3 overtimes or 2 overtimes or whatever. Like you need to look shift by shift. It's the vacuum of the moment. And Dave Tippett, I think, just kept saying, okay, we're in a situation now, defensive zone face-off. Right now, I can't trust Ethan Bear and Slater Cuckoo to make a smart play. So I need to go with Darnell Nurse because a turnover ends our season. So it was just that decision over and over and over again. And Ethan Bear's getting a little crucified for that for that turnover in the third period. But right before it, I was yelling at my TV because Slater Cuckoo had no pressure on his side of the ice, and he still brought it behind the net. And I said, hit the brakes. I yelled that because he should have stopped behind the net and taken a second because he would have had time. He would have had time to look around. Instead, like he put Ethan Bear in a bit of an odd position. Like if Cuckoo would have just hit the brakes and taken a breath, it might have calmed down. And maybe that's something of, if Ethan Bear is playing with a veteran, that he doesn't even get put in that situation. But it was on Bear, but it was also on his partner a little.
I would also say that the forwards need to own some of that too, because they flew the zone pretty quickly on that one.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of puck support or passing options for Ethan Bear. Now, again, he made a bad choice, but you need to look at the whole picture on it. There's a Cuckoo angle that Tyler just brought up. Where were the fucking forwards? Why is he having to make 100-foot pass?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I was saying. Like we need to play that small.
There's a bunch of it all in context of the play. And it's unfortunate that Ethan Bear was the one with the puck on his stick that made the pass. That's unfortunate. But you got to look at the whole picture. There was a lot going on there. I want to get away from Ethan Bear for a sec. I want to look at the Oilers' inability to defend a lead. In the regular, I think that was one of the more surprising things for me. Yeah. Well, first, before we get into that, shout out to skipthedishes.ca. I ordered a pizza last night. I was too stressed to make anything for myself. So Skip the Dishes, they got me fed as they always do. Skipthedishes.ca. Get yourself something to eat. Tip your drivers. Eat local. Try a new restaurant this weekend, Tyler. Maybe this weekend is the weekend that Tyler or I guess it's only Tuesday. Maybe this week is the week that Tyler tries sushi for the first time. Maybe. Skipthedish.ca can make it happen. All right, so I want to talk about the Oilers' inability to defend the lead. All season long, when they had a lead going into the third period, I don't have the number in front of me, and I wish I did. I apologize. They were mostly automatic, were they not, Tyler?
When the Oilers scored first this season, they were 23-3-1. When the Oilers led after 2 periods, they were 26-1-2.
Mm-hmm. It's just like how
Rick almost threw up when I read that.
I knew the number was good. I didn't realize that good.
That's why what bothers me is that the Oilers, they really did look incredibly nervous they really looked like they were gripping the stick, and that they didn't have the same just swag that they closed out games with so often. And going to game 3, yes, everybody's hitting Archibald for that penalty. It was dumb. I don't understand the
suspension.
I don't understand the suspension, that's for sure. But it was definitely a penalty. It was a needless hit, and you can't chop a guy out at the legs like that.
Unless
Yes, you can.
Yes,
You can. Your Dylan DeMello did it fucking last night. You're allowed to do
We're
that.
gonna get to reps in a second, Rick. But like, if this is the regular season, that doesn't cancel out. Like, the Oilers don't just crumble from that in the regular season. So that's why I believe that they were nervous, like beyond repair almost. They were nervous beyond repair, and they were playing like not the confident team that just closed out wins automatically.
They played tentative. They went back to a style that you saw in like 2018, where they're just like trying not to lose. And then you get to the playoff, when you're doing it in game 42 and game 36 and game 24, even the loss doesn't really mean that much to you, right? Like, sure, a loss is a loss, but at the end of the day, there's still a lot more games to go. So, you get to the playoffs, and I think when they got to the playoffs and they got down, it really got to them. That's why in the first game, when you don't score right away, these guys, they kind of look like they're dragging pianos, but I think it's just like they're trying too hard. They're trying too hard to create something. They're trying too hard not to give up anything. It's just they actually contradict themselves. They actually, they end up fighting themselves. And dude, the 3-4-1 or whatever it was, I thought we had some space there. They gave up the one. I was like, that's okay. So we got a 3-goal lead, and bang, another one. I was like, well, luckily we have that 3-goal lead, right? It's 1-goal lead, but now we're still, oh shit, now they're tied. The
level of confidence I felt after Jujhar Khaira scored the 4th goal in that game was off the charts. I was having fun. We were talking about the Bud Light Seltzer guy in the stands. We were all making memes. It was
now it's fucking Wednesday, and we all want to like go hide under a rock somewhere.
But
Tuesday.
So Big Milk, you kind of touched on it, and I think that it's something that's like, it's even bigger when you look at the defense as a whole, because this team throughout the entire regular season, and another comment that I'm saying that I don't have the stats to back it up on, but the defense on this team was chipping in offensively all year. We were the 3rd best team for defensive scoring this year, and that tells me that you have a defensive core that is cool with making a mistake to go and get a goal, to go and chip in offensively. Like Rick said, because you have a 56 game runway to be able to make up for those mistakes and change your style of play if it does start to burn you. When this series started, though, that defense was playing to not be the GOAT, to not be the one that is the reason you lose a game, versus being the hero.
The whole team was playing like that in games 1 and 2.
Agreed.
Almost, right?
Agreed.
It almost felt like that was the coaching style. Like, instead of going with what we had in the regular season, where everybody's living on their toes and moving forwards. It went back to like 2 years ago, and we'd be winning, and then we'd start to,
agreed.
We're up by a goal going to the 3rd, and we get off our toes and sit back on our heels at the flat of our foot, and we end up getting past. It was very frustrating. I think our coaching style needs to push out in these positions.
Well, and I said it on State of the Nation, I think that this team needs to learn to play as a favorite. We as a franchise are really good at being underdogs. We're really good when everybody counts us out and we're down 3-0 in a series and we have our best game of the series. That's real good. But when this team comes in and they should be able to walk out of that series in 5 games or 6 games with a victory, and they're coming in and playing tentatively in the first 2 games at home, that you're right. That's a coaching thing. That's a leadership thing. And I'm not saying that's just Connor McDavid. I'm saying that as a team, you need to walk in with a little bit of swagger and a little bit of, these guys don't have the stuff to stay with us kind of swagger. We just didn't have it. So, you start to kind of play from behind, and then you start to try and adjust your style, and it just doesn't happen in a small sample size, as Bag Milk mentioned. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things. The difference for me with the Chicago series versus this one is there's not one thing that I can point to and be like, that's why I'm frustrated. There's not, well, if we just got goaltending.
There wasn't one thing in Chicago either.
There was the goaltending.
I didn't have enough.
The goaltenders let us down. The goaltenders let us down in that series.
Okay, but also Zach Cassian didn't come out. Also, this happened. That was garbage.
Yeah, it's a comedy of errors again.
None of the guys played well. It's all just,
if you get that goaltending
cuts again.
If you get what you got from Mike Smith this year against Chicago, it's a different story. The Chicago Blackhawks aren't running amok all over us, right? Yes.
Well, we got the goaltending this year, and we still fucking lose.
The big thing that I want to
more frustrating.
That's exactly
the big thing I want to talk about too is a major asset that the Oilers had heading into this series was their special teams. And I feel like that was really surprising for me how ineffective the Oilers were with their special teams. Yes, they finished at 18.2 on the power play. They got a goal last night, needed it. But I think they only got 2 goals in the series, if I remember correctly, on the power play, which seems odd for an Oilers team that just seems to sink them 30% of the time. Also, on the flip side, their PK was disastrous against the Jets. It's horrible. Just like, it was, I shouldn't say disastrous, maybe that's too heavy, but it seems like they weren't killing by default like they had been towards the end of the season. It was, I don't know about you guys, but for the last month or so of the season, when the Oilers got a penalty, it was just like, fuck it, who cares? They're going to kill it off. But in this series, I didn't feel like that.
Winnipeg's got shooters, man. They got some guys that can shoot, right? All of a sudden, you don't need to get to special areas anymore. You can start whipping them from anywhere. We saw some of those goals that went in there because they had shooters. You know, you play against a team kind of like us a bit who doesn't really have the same amount of shooters. We do more of a systematic set of plays. It's a little bit easier to stop when these guys can shoot from anywhere, which they did and took advantage of us. So maybe that's one thing we could have done. But one penalty in the fucking first game? Come on.
That's exactly it. Sample size comes into it, right? The Oilers
the names on the back of the damn referee jerseys come into it.
We're going to talk about the refs.
You saw
the Jets had 12.
The refs in a second.
The Jets had 12 minors called against them. The Oilers had 11 minors called against them. You flip that over to the Tampa Bay Florida series. The Tampa Bay Lightning have had 32 penalties called on them, and the Florida Panthers have had 30 penalties called on them. I think
not fair though, because
there's a sample size argument there.
They have a couple line brawls in there,
and that's fine. But that's the thing about any special team is that you can't get into the flow of the game. Like coming into this series, we'd killed off the penalties with no goals against in 10 games. We ended this with the last 2 games just getting absolutely shelled on the power play by the Jets. And
what's our PK percentage for the series?
70.
Pardon?
70.
But when you go for that long of a stretch without a goal against, and then you get one, the dominoes just keep falling, and the team loses confidence in that. And so Bag Milk, you're absolutely right. Special teams played a huge role.
The 70% on the PK is 3rd worst of all playoff teams. And sample size, I 100% Dan.
How many? Sorry, and that was on 12 on 11 attempts.
Something like that. Whatever Dan just said.
Yeah, they had the Minnesota Wild had 12 minor penalties. We had 11. So and that's over 4-game series. That's crazy. That's just crazy. And so and again, you can say that that's even, and that's fine. But as Bag Milk alluded to, special teams is our bread and butter. That's where we make our money in the regular season. And then all of a sudden the whistles are gone. That's a tough thing to count on to be clicking when you get 1 in one game and 2 in the next game and then 4 in one game. Like it's silly.
We got 6 last night. It felt like.
Well, we got none in overtime. That's for darn sure.
It felt like they were trying to make up for them.
They got 4 last night.
Yeah, and they didn't. Most of them come in the second period after the Oilers had to kill off 3 in the first. It seemed like the
Oilers got 4 last night. The Jets got 5, including 2 in overtime.
Yeah, there was 3 attached to each other. It felt like, and those overtime. Yeah.
It's kind of just
the fact that McDavid didn't draw a penalty in that series just
tells
you everything you need to fucking know.
But first, I want to talk about Cornerstone Insurance. For 19 years and 4 generations, Cornerstone Insurance has been a family and employee-owned business here in Edmonton. They've got all the insurance products you need. Spring is here. Turn it into summer. Maybe you got to get your bike out. Maybe you're shopping for some insurance. And the Cornerstone can make that happen. Go to cornerstoneins.ca, cornerstoneins.ca/about. You can find on the left-hand side of your screen, a Citizens of the Nation tab. Get yourself a little discount on some car, home, personal insurance, whatever you need. whatever you need. Since we can't keep Rick off it, we might as well get to it.
Mm-hmm.
We might as well talk about the referee. I could not be angrier that the NHL feels that it is acceptable to watch their stars get jet skied, or water skied, I should say, hacked, everything in between, and think that's okay, and think that that is the way to sell the product on the ice. Not only that, the inconsistencies in what was being called was fucking dog shit. And I say that for both sides. There were times when I would kind of laugh when the Oilers just got away with one. I'm like, well, I guess that goes. You guys hear me talk about prison rules all the time. That's what this series was.
Oh yeah.
And if it was called even normally for a regular season game, which in itself is inconsistent, I don't know what we're talking about here today on Tuesday, because we talked about Josh Archibald's clipping penalty and suspension from game 3. Well, are you telling me that the same fucking play that DeMello made on Connor McDavid last night wasn't almost the same? Stuck a knee out, you freeze frame it, it's there. Not even a minor penalty on the play. Department of Player Safety didn't even feel like looking into it. And yet, something very similar, equally dumb in my opinion, results in a suspension for Josh Archibald and a 2-minute minor at the time. What are we doing here? It's like, why bother having referees on the ice if they're just going to... Here's another thing that bothered me about the refs last night. They weren't calling anything. And Yamamoto takes a penalty in overtime. That was a puck battle. Sure, it was a hold. I'll say it was a hold. But
it was definitely a penalty.
It was definitely a penalty. But based on the context of the game and the moment, how are you calling it? Okay, you call it, fine. The Oilers got away with the kill, huge kill. And then what? 3, 4, 5 minutes later, McDavid breaking out of his own end, fucking mauled. Later on in the frame, right in front of the refs, I should add, Leon Draisaitl is trying to physically pull his stick out of a Jets defender's hand. You can see him jerking on it, and that didn't merit a penalty. What are we doing? And I'm not trying to make up excuses that the Oilers lost because of the referee. But what I will say is that it's endlessly frustrating to be watching a game and you don't know what the fucking rules are on the sport that you've been watching your whole life. And the NHL seems to be okay with that. The NHL seems to be fine with shitting all over their own product, not protecting their stars, and just being like throwing it off in as game management. What happens if DeMello hurts Connor McDavid there? Then what? The NHL still thinks it's a clean play? Call the fucking rules. And I mean that on both teams. Players will adjust. Players will adjust if you're calling hooking, just like back in, 2006, when they started calling stick infractions?
Obstruction
Everybody made adjustments. Everybody made adjustments, or you would end up in the box. And then all of a sudden that's just gone because it's playoff hockey. And then we have to sit through the intermission panel talking about, that's just playoff hockey for you. The Oilers are getting fucked up and down the ice by the Jets and they're not calling anything, but that's playoffs, baby. No, it's not. It's garbage. It's trash. And I feel confident that if this was going the other way, I would probably say the same thing. Just be like, you know what? We got lucky on there because they were not calling shit on the Jets.
My dad, I was talking to him about that the other day, actually. And he said, he was talking about how dumb it was that in the playoffs this happens. And he said, in baseball, they don't suddenly in the playoffs say, you know what? You need 4 strikes to strike someone out. Exactly. In basketball, they don't suddenly go, guess what? 3-pointers are only worth 2 now. Fuck you. Like, hockey's the only sport.
Yes.
For whatever reason, come playoff time is like, you know what? Our rules aren't the same anymore. And then not only that, I loved your point as well, Bag Milk. You have to sit there and listen to like the panels be like, wow, that's the way it is. It's the way it was in the 80s with Kelly Rudy and the boys. So that's the way it should always be. It's like so fucked up. Just like call the sport the way it's supposed to be called. Like, it's like a badge of honor that some hockey fans wear that like, well, you know, you're going to get 2-handed in the fucking mouth in the playoffs. And that's just the way it is.
It's like you watch the Super Bowl, right? They don't stop calling offside in the fucking Super Bowl. They don't stop calling interference and holding and all the shit that gets thrown. It's ridiculous and it's garbage. And you look around the NHL and the playoffs right now, and if you're selling this playoff hockey shouldn't get called, like, Give me a fucking break. What is it going to take to actually call the rules for the sport? It's just like, it's a guessing game. Series to series, game to game is a fucking guessing game on what's a penalty in the NHL, and it's garbage. You're telling me that if this is the NBA finals, NBA playoffs, and LeBron's driving to the fucking key, he's not going to get called on whatever he normally gets called on? Of course he is. They don't eliminate.
And he can take four. And they let him take 4 steps.
It's nonsense.
Well, so here's my thing, right? If you look at 2 sports that are the 2 bottom sports of the big 4, the NBA and the NHL, they both have a problem. And to me, it's the polar opposites of each other. The NBA shades to their star players on every decision that they make. And that's, I think that's almost to their detriment. The NHL, meanwhile, looks at Logan Stanley as important as Connor McDavid to the sport of hockey. And so at least in the NBA's defense, they can tell you, if you have a LeBron James on your team, you're going to the championships. With the NHL, you have to have a well-constructed team, and that's really good for marketing. It's really easy to market, come watch how a GM constructed this franchise and how the Tampa Bay Lightning were able to circumvent the cap rules and bring in $17 million of cap space in the playoffs. That's how we're going to market the NHL this year.
Just meanwhile, I wish the others could do that, One time I want to be on the business end of one of those.
Exactly. You have 2 of the best players in the league, and it's prison rules, and you just have to like it. Kevin BX is going to laugh about it while you're watching the broadcast. So it's just we can talk about it, and we'll talk about the fact that Connor McDavid didn't draw a damn penalty in a 4-game series, but Logan Stanley sure did. And that guy is 6'8", soft as they come when it comes to being hit himself. But then he can rough up any one of our guys. You were mentioning that sequence bag milk where Leon Draisaitl had his stick held. Kyler Yamamoto had his head taken off by a cross check, and there was no call before that.
That was a downward tomahawk chop,
and nothing called. And whatever.
Zero.
That's playoffs for you. But then to have sustained pressure broken up by an infraction of the rule, that to me is the murder that you're looking for, and that's the only thing that you can call in overtime is murder. They murdered the offensive pressure from the Edmonton Oilers by holding the stick and breaking the rules. You call a penalty. It's frustrating.
Another dumb
that
thing
Archibald
about this
suspension was fucking weak. That Archibald suspension was fucking weak. He didn't stick his knee. He's a midget compared to this motherfucker.
Yeah, he avoided a check.
He went low because he went. Sure, did he go a little too low? Yep, probably.
It's definitely a penalty.
Call the penalty.
2-minute minor.
Problem.
It's not.
Where the fuck is this suspension coming in?
I don't hate him getting 1 game for that, but it's stupid looking back at it now and going, Archibald gets a game and a costly penalty and an important part in the game, and DeMello got nothing. Like, how does the NHL as a sport, but it's so random, right?
Sure.
Like,
because there's I don't know if you're going to touch on this, Tyler, and I'm sorry if I steal it from you, but like, what was it? The day before, 2 days before, Shea Weber gets fined $5 for a cross check to the back of Wayne Simmons' head, and then Archibald gets a 1-game suspension for something that was dumb. Definitely, I think we all agree it's a penalty. But like, what are we doing?
They've thrown out a bunch of fines. They've thrown out a bunch of fines.
Anthony Mantha got $5,000 for rolling onto a goalie that looked no worse than what was it Pionk did to Smith. Like, it's just
Appleton, I think it was.
Yeah, Appleton. You're right. It is just the old adage of spin the wheel at DOPS and see what happens.
Maybe
like
I would have been happy if they would have come in the next day and said, okay, whoever that was, you got a $5,000 fine for trying to downward chop on Yamamo's head. Or even today, they say, hey, listen, here's a fine for DeMello for his knee. But no, they don't have the fucking balls to do that.
Well, maybe the department's too small. They don't have time to watch all the games. Like they can only pick like 2 a night, and they're like, fuck.
It's like they've got a tank full of manatees, and their suspension and punishment is just a fucking floating balls on top of their tank. And the manatees, they swim up because they see one and they grab it and they pull it down and drop it into a thing. Thank you, Dan.
They have the same bedtime as Tyler, except for they're living in the Eastern time zone, so they're fucking in bed by the time the game gets going.
You can only get suspended if it happens before 9:30 p.m. Eastern. After that, it's fucking you can do whatever you want.
Last word on the refs is, again, I'm not making up excuses that
they're trash.
The Oilers lost because the refereeing, but as somebody who loves the sport and has watched, I mean, I've watched a bunch of games from the other series around the league. It's just, how is this what both teams got? How is this what you can't just wrap up everything under the tidy little blanket of playoff hockey. You're encouraging mediocrity. And that's the NHL. Not only are they encouraging mediocrity with this level of officiating, they also are incredibly stupid. I've said this on other podcasts, on this one, on Real Life, on Beatcast. It's like this league constantly talks about how to get more goal scoring. Every single year, we're talking about making bigger nets. The goalies need smaller pads. They do this and that, or just call the fucking rule book. You've got
goals would go up if you call
there.
the rule book.
It's the solutions right there. Does anybody want to see a 9 power play game? No, but I'll tell you what, the players will adjust. They will adjust, because I'll tell you one thing right now. If you went into the Winnipeg Jets room last night, or all series for that matter, and you asked them all very honestly, do you think you'll be penalized for anything? They probably would have said no. And they operated accordingly.
Yep. They realized it early on.
Yeah. And I like that point too, because like calling the rule book, it might result in 1 year of like a lot of power plays in the game, or like a few months. But you're right, Big Milk. Eventually they're going to adjust, and coaches are going to start going to their defensemen and saying, listen, I know for the last 2 years, you could hook Connor McDavid and whack him down when he's coming into the zone. But guess what? They're calling it every time now. It's not worth. And then eventually Connor McDavid's just going to have more room to do stuff. And so will Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel, and go down the list of naming the superstar players in the NHL. It'll only benefit the game. But this is also a league that took 20 years to figure out how to fucking stagger their game starts for the playoffs. They figured out like this year that you should start one game at 5 and the other game at 6. They couldn't figure that out for like my whole life until now.
Well, and to that point too, talking about, like how the teams adjust, it's happened. We've seen it when the obstruction rule became a rule. Remember that was going to be a new thing. There was memos sent out, and preseason you had 14 penalties in a game, and exactly
this is a penalty. Just so you know,
they all learned it. They all adjusted to it, and then halfway through the season, we're like, did they stop calling it? Did they forget the memo? And then the teams are left questioning, well, what do we do? Do we continue to not obstruct because they're not going to call it? No, every team is going to play to the edge of the rules and beyond. That's just the natural way of the hockey and the way of the sport. And you're right. Not knowing what that edge is a joke. And when one team figures out where that edge is and the other one doesn't, that team usually benefits for that reason. So it's we could go on the entire podcast about this.
I mean,
I've added some names to my list. Brad Meyer and Eric Furlat. Next time you guys are in Edmonton, I highly suggest you bring earplugs.
I know we're doing a whole post-mortem here, but there's like a very interesting piece of information just came across Twitter.
Hit us, Tom.
Oh God. Okay. What's it about? Is it about us?
Wayne Gretzky. 1 minute ago, Wayne Gretzky in a statement.
Terrifying.
With great appreciation, I wanted to let everyone know I have decided to step away as vice chairman of the Edmonton Oilers effective today. The Oilers, their fans, and the city of Edmonton have meant the world for me and my family for 4 decades. That will never end. Given the pandemic and other life changes, I realize I will not be able to dedicate the time nor effort needed to support this world-class organization. He thanks Daryl and Renee Cates, their entire family, and the team for all the support. Wishes the Oilers nothing but success. So Wayne Gretzky stepping away from the Oilers organization.
Would he have to do that to go on TV?
Probably.
Yeah, so that just means what he's going to ESPN.
No, I think it was. So I think I saw this like a week and a half ago or something like that. TNT offered them like a boatload of fucking.
ESPN.
Was it ESPN?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody offered them a boatload of fucking cash. Okay, so dude, it has to be like today when we're all like we're fragile enough. Like this is like he wants out.
This is a good thing because
he's holding the door. No, he's holding the door. So now Connor's got his bag. He's walking out too. Leon's already started the car. They're all going to go to the airport. This is for TV. Hopefully.
The trolls are going to now latch onto this, and we're going to see some memes about how even Wayne Gretzky is bailing out on the team, and maybe it will distract us from the set your calendars by it. The Oilers are wasting Connor McDavid narrative.
No, this adds to it. This adds to it.
Hopefully it distracts Rick. I'm trying to take the positive from it.
Oh, buddy, there's no positive today. We'll talk positives in like July or something like that.
Well, here's the thing too. It's, you also got to remember that if I would be doing the exact same, if this was the Leafs that just got swept, I'd be doing the exact same thing. So it's all noise. It's all noise.
It is.
And the Connor McDavid thing is the easy target. It's the easy shot. We know he's not going anywhere. Even Ryan Rishaug felt the need to do a tweet thread today where he's just like, listen.
And he chases everybody out of the damn city.
He's not going anywhere. You know what I mean? It's just like, what are we talking about here? I am bummed though, because playoff win.
Did you see Gregor's tweet about that?
No, I didn't.
No.
Paraphrase.
So, the people who talk like this, usually that's kind of way. So important to remember that often it is people who would quit or shy away from a challenge themselves who expect and project others to quit when things get tough. So all the people that say he could walk away would probably be the ones who would walk away if they were in the same shoes. However,
Good news, Nuge. Yeah, he wants to be an Oiler. He said it loudly and proudly today. I know we're not supposed to talk about the future, but I need some positive.
He said, quote, I was going to bring that up next because there were media avails today. Nuge said, quote, I think I've said it from the start. I love being an Oiler. I always have. My goal is to stay an Oiler. Right now, it's not really in my mind. I got a lot more in my head than that. It's tough to think about that, but I think I've said it from day one. Also, Adam Larson talked about how much he loves the city, and Ryan Rishaug followed it up by saying that Ken Holland didn't do any negotiating during the playoffs, obviously, which basically just means for the last 6 days he didn't do any negotiating. But Rishaug
took a week off.
How dare you?
But Rishaug went on to add that. Rishaug says talks rarely happen around playoff time. My expectation is it will resume in short order, and a deal is quite likely to be found between the Oilers and Larson. And Barry wasn't as optimistic.
Nah, he's chasing the bag. We all know he's chasing.
Barry made it clear he wants a long-term deal.
That's fine.
But the Nuge one is the big one for me. Like, you got to get, I know some people are mad about his season and all that, and we'll save it for Friday's episode. Actually, I'm not going to go on my rant.
I will say though,
don't sell short.
I will say though, that goal he scored last night was beautiful, and I needed it.
If that was his last game as an Oiler for whatever reason, he left us with a good one. That was a very, very good performance from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Ryan Rishaug, we'll end this off on Nuge. He just said he wasn't thinking last night could be his last game as an Oiler. Said he's encouraged by the fact that there was dialogue this year, and we'll see where it goes.
Cool. It's getting done.
I
just like we're going to be
Winnipeg. I talk to lead me to believe that it's like he wants to be here. Oilers want him. McDavid wants him. And I think that last point might become more important than a lot of people are willing to recognize. I think if Connor McDavid in his exit interview says, and I mean, Bag Milk, I know you've heard stuff like this too. Like, Connor McDavid was pretty adamant at one point about who he wanted on his left side. Yep. And he got his way in the bubble. Connor McDavid wasn't surprised when he started playing with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins for a long, long time. That was something he asked for, apparently. So again, if McDavid sits down in an exit interview with Tippett and Holland and goes, I like playing with 93. He's important in our room. Is Ken Holland going to be like, well, that sucks. He wouldn't come down $150K in his asking price, so I let him walk. Like,
Well, here's the thing. Nuge, it depends what he wants to do. He's made about $45 million in his career. A lot of money. Buy a lot of ponies with that. Does he want to win? Does he want to be a guy who went through 10 years does he want to be Andy Dufresne stopping near the end of the shit pipe before he gets out into the rain? Is that really what he wants to do? I seeing his quote today saying, I've said from the start, I want to be an Oiler. In this city, especially, when you have, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong here, but would Ryan Nugent-Hopkins not be one of the most sought after UFA forwards this year?
Yeah, like, it's tough
based
to tell
on the list.
Yeah, it's tough to tell who's going to get to market because, like, I mean, is Gabriel Landeskog going to be a free agent? I'm probably not.
Never.
So yeah, I would say Nuge is going to be right up there. It's going to be Nuge. It's going to be Taylor Hall.
I don't see Halsey going on the market either.
No, I don't think Hall's going to the market. Like, I don't think a guy like David Krejci, Dougie Hamilton is probably number one, but Nuge is number two.
But we're talking about forward.
So if you're looking at getting rid of Nuge, then all of a sudden you need 2 top 6 left wingers.
Right?
Exactly. And like the one thing that bothered me too a little bit, I know we're supposed to be doing this preview next on Friday, but one thing that bothered me a little bit is, and I get it, I love new toys also, but man, there's a lot of people thinking that Dylan Holloway will just step into the NHL and score at a rate that he was doing in college. You know, like, we've done this. We've seen this movie before. Is Dylan Holloway going to be on the team next year? Probably, maybe, you know, top 9. Fuck yeah. But if you're expecting that kid at 19 or whatever he is to step in and contribute in the top 6 in the NHL and just be like, away you go.
In the playoffs. It's just like, it reminds me of Jesse Puljujarvi. Like, this year, Jesse was solid, rock solid. We were all thrilled with him, but it took him some time to get to a spot to be Jesse Puljujarvi.
Yeah.
I like this.
100%.
I like this chat because this is I think we need to talk about the positives that we take away from this. Because
we do this for the last 15 years.
Rick, we're going to end on a little bit of positivity.
Oh, that's
Rick,
fair. That's
sign
fair.
out of the chat. This is recorded. It's fine. You can leave. But
Or Rick
but
signs out of the chat. We got to give a shout out to Deuce Vodka. We got to give them a shout out. Deuce Vodka is our sponsor for the podcast. Normally they do hot and cold performers. We're not doing that today. So I just want to give a shout out to Deuce. Go to deucevodka.com/about us. You'll see the story of the vodka. You'll see some handsome pictures of Brett Kissel. There's a store locator on there so you can get yourself a cocktail. Lord knows we all need a cocktail today. So head on over to deucevodka.com, figure out how to make that happen. Drink responsibly, provided that you are of legal drinking age. All right. Now we got 10, 15 minutes left. Let's just some positives. Dan, what do you got?
For me, the number one or one of the most exciting things that came out of this season and into the playoffs for me is Ryan Mcleod. That kid is here to stay. I don't know if he's necessarily here to stay at the second line center, but there is a player there that did not show one bit of rookie ability to me, you know, overall. Yes, he had some mistakes. The whole team did. But yeah, with him, I'm excited there. Jesse Puljujarvi from the regular season into the playoffs has taken an absolute step forward. And, you know, you saw the panel there kind of ripping on the fact that McDavid had a little blow up at him. They didn't mention the fact that McDavid then did apologize and said my bad afterwards, you know. And
it also looked like he was yelling at Gulletson also, depending on which angle you looked at. If you looked at the extended clip, but anyway, go ahead.
So yeah, like there, and I know you guys have more. I don't want to take them all off the board, but yeah, for me, I'm really excited for what we got in Ryan Mcleod. I'm really excited what we got from Jesse Puljujarvi this year, and another guy too that you guys mentioned it already, Kyler Yamamoto. That is a hell of a player there, and his growth is only going to continue to go upwards.
Rick, I'm making you go because I need to hear Rick say something nice.
Oh, you know, I'm obviously the most optimistic person, right? So if we want to just go sunshine and rainbows, I have plenty of years of experience in doing so.
But it's not lip service, Rick. It's not lip service. Like it is
like you can't
say that this series was.
It is till they do something.
We just opened this entire segment up with this series was, you know, a fake sweep.
A failure. No, it's not. We lost in 4.
We were 1-goal games for 4 games.
Still a failure, though. I do agree with Rick.
It's fair. It's a failure. It's not fake.
But being positive, as a fan doesn't mean that you're. I won't let you have it because being positive as a fan doesn't necessarily mean that you're like, well, everything is fine and everything's okay. There's a time and there's a place to criticize.
You just said everything is fine and everything is okay.
I literally did.
So I'm going to
love Yam, but he
I'm going to amend. I'm going to amend.
He needs to pop some in the net.
I'm going to amend for Rick. I want to hear some
positive. There's lots of positives. There's lots of positives out there.
I'm gonna amend. So Rick, you can one positive can be followed by one angry vent. Go ahead.
Oh, look. The angry vent is all just the failure. I'm sorry. It sucks. It sucks. There's nothing good to take out of this. Ask any guy with skates on his feet last night what he's what the positive. I'm sorry. There's no positives here. Okay, we're going to wake up tomorrow and we're going to wake up the day after and the day after, and it's going to get further and further back in the rearview mirror, and we're going to start to be able to focus on the next season. Yep, 100%. I agree with you. But as of today, we're less than 24 hours from loss. Ask any of those guys who just had a media availability. There is nothing good. However, going forward, if you want to look at this from the GM's perspective and what he would have to do, I think your right side down your D is not fixed, but it's pretty much set. I think you need to figure out what you got going on in the cleft bomb situation, because you're going to need a guy down there.
It'd be a massive ad.
But we're not looking at bringing in a whole ton of new, but we're going to bring in a couple big pieces of new, and we're going to need some of the guys here to pick their socks up and be better. I'm like Mcleod, yeah, fantastic. Looks like he's perfectly on track, but that track is only to like right now. He's got to take the next step and the next step and the next step. I'm not going to sit here and predict that he's going to, because I've done that a billion times and I've been wrong a billion times. There's lots to be positive about here. This is not all doom and gloom outside of the time limit of like when you're feeling it the most. You know, once the playoffs are over and the Stanley Cup's handed out, then yeah, 100%. There's going to be all sorts of positivity and new light and light at the end of the tunnel. But as for right now, we're in the mix. We're the second team out. We lost in 4. Yep, they were fucking close and whatever, but it still sucks. Doesn't take anything away. We take no solace in the fact they all went to overtime. I'd almost rather lose 8-0, all 4 of them. I don't really know, but probably not. But what I'm saying though is like right now there is nothing good. 2 weeks from now, of course there's things out there we can start to progress with. But right now it's dark, gloomy, and everybody needs to look in the mirror and say, how can we be better?
There's things you can take away from this series and look at
in 2 weeks for sure. But right now, no, you got to sit there and look at even every player out there is going to sit there and like, I'm sorry, man, we failed.
Are we players?
It's like we're it's your no,
but I'm also not like I'm also not going to be like a fanatic who just says Linus Omark's going to be the best player in the world. He's still going to come back.
There's still time.
Like this.
You know what are you doing? Why are you dismissing Linus Omark here?
It's like Dan's starving right now. And Dan's starving right now, and Rick's like, "Here's a sandwich." I don't want to feed those moral victories. I don't want to feed those moral victories. There's no moral victories.
That's what I mean. And to sit here and say like, but, look, it kind of feels like we're looking for moral victories.
But I'm demanding sunshine from you.
I want us to take the loss. I want us to sit there and wallow in it, and then come out into the brightness afterwards. Sit here and let it affect you, players wise. Obviously, fans, we have no control.
It's just an exhausting existence, though, and I used to be that way, Rick. When we lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, I was despondent. I was beside myself for
I'm still dead inside
and months, and it still hurts. It doesn't change that, but
I still hate that franchise.
I'm still dead inside.
Yep.
When I feel that. Yeah, and it's not wrong, and that's why the coming back from 4-1 down, it was 4-1 didn't bother me that much, because I've seen the darkness.
We can be positive in a couple of days. We can be positive outside the playoffs. But right now, I want every single player. I want the GM. I want all the coaches to sit there and feel this. If you want to learn from these things, you need to feel these things. Don't try and get away from them. Sit there and take the emotion in.
But talking about the positives doesn't make the coach think, well, everything's okay and I did okay.
You don't talk about that. There are no positives right now. Don't try and make it like I don't want any player to feel like, all right, okay, it's not as bad.
So is this a podcast for the Edmonton Oilers, or is this a podcast for Edmonton Oilers fans? Because that's what I'm trying to say.
I hold myself the same way I'd hold a teammate, a player, and for whatever dumbass reason, I see myself from the eyes of like a.
And I love that about
player.
You. I do
more than anything else.
I genuinely love that about you. I
can't just remove myself as a fucking fan. I wish that stupid thing was on my chest every fucking day. Like that's just the way I've always been. That's the way I
live your way.
When I go into every sport, that's just when I have a team or whatever. That's the way I feel. I don't know why. It's just who I am and the way I is. And yeah, so I'm gonna sit here and I feel like I can fucking cheer better next year. It's gonna change that's gonna change the games like that. I know it's ridiculous, but
But to that point, we're gonna be in the stands next year. That's a positive. There you go, Rick. Good job on getting a positive out there.
Tyler.
At the rate we're moving right now, I don't doubt.
Mute Rick. He got his positive.
And Tyler, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I think this whole last 5 minutes of the podcast has been incredibly confusing to listen to. I don't know.
It was just like, all right, we're going to end this off with some positives. And Rick's just like, fuck you. And we're just like, all right.
But I get it. Like, yeah,
I get it too.
the way I felt after that 4-1 collapse in game 3, like I've never felt that empty because of a sporting event before. And I'm like not really exaggerating. Like maybe the 2015 Jays had me feeling that way too, but like this one sucked. But when you look at the season as a whole, you know, Darnell Nurse took a huge step forward. That's a big time positive. Jesse Puljujarvi went from an outcast to a member of the core. That's a big positive. I liked what Mcleod brought. Yamamoto's not a positive. He had a terrible year. Like he's still a good young player.
Statistically, he did, but I think that his effort and he came to game every game. He was out there playing his damnedest every time, forechecking, all that kind of stuff. But
you got to score, and you know development's not a straight line. I'm very confident Kyler Yamamoto can bounce back next year and have another good year. Or have a good year. Yeah, I think Darnell Nurse is a big positive. That's one I take away. I don't know. Maybe we should just do this on Friday when everyone's in a more positive mood, because I'm not even in much of a positive mood. But
I'll tell you though, last night, to be honest, they lost the OT. I did the B cast. It was a 1 a.m. B cast. The vibe was just as you expected. And then when I wrapped it up, I just sat there in the silence and drank a beer, staring at nothing.
Oh man!
I was going to ask how everybody
That's what I feel like inside.
Rick, did you smash shit?
No, yesterday I felt nothing. I literally had very little emotion going into the game. I lost everything Sunday night. I left. I came home. I grabbed a couple of beers. I live in Oliver area. I ended up walking. I took a picture. I sent it to Wanye because I ended up over by Blue Chicago, and I kept going.
It too. What a fucking trek you took.
Rick walked up to the Henday. He did the whole loop.
Dude, then I went south, and I was in the River Valley all of a sudden. And dude, I walked.
This is a really like fucked up analogy, but I was talking about the guys at 1260 about it. I was crushed after game 3, and after game 4, I was like almost at peace with it. And it was like at game 3 was someone telling me that my pet had to be put down.
Oh no.
And like, I was crushed. I was like, it's over, but you still had to still spend another like day and a half covering the team. And then when it actually ended in game 4, I was just kind of like,
cover your ears.
You know what? The Oilers are in a better place now. And that better place is the offseason.
Did you get any turn in that yesterday? Like I walked in, I sat there as dark as whatever, but there was times when I got a little bit of the heart going and I got a little excited and I was sitting up on the edge of my couch a couple of times. But in the end, it wasn't as big of a letdown, but little parts of me did allow me to get a little bit of hope last night.
I was excited.
Well, because you saw the best player do best player things.
I was excited.
I saw us go up in a game where, you know, we shouldn't have learned from, or should have learned from our mistakes the previous game.
I texted one of my buddies who's probably like the biggest Oilers fan I know, or like out of my friend group. And I was like, I'm taking a shot right now before the game. The next 3 hours will either shoot me into euphoria or leave me at the bottom of a pit of despair. And I was like, there will be no in between here. But I was accepting of it. I knew what the two outcomes were. In game 3, when they blew that, like, again, we were making the memes. We're up 4-1. We're back in the fucking series. And then like 40 minutes later, you're just like sitting there staring at the TV being like, what the fuck? Like that was the worst feeling in the world. Like they stomped on your soul, but I had no soul left to be stomped on. I knew life sucked. So when they were eliminated, it was like, I don't know. I don't have to do pregame podcasts anymore. I have a little more.
That's actually, you actually reminded me that I got to go through the Nation's Instagram account and unblock some people. Because last night during the beat cast, I had no time for shenanigans. So people, if they were just saying even the most mellow negative comment, like stuff that I would normally not even acknowledge, I would just be like, get the fuck out of here. Just block
anybody that's run any kind of social media thing understands exactly what you're feeling, though.
Man.
There's a certain point where you just have had enough, and there's no sense in piling on.
All right. So what have we learned? Let's wrap it up. What have we learned? Hockey.
There's work to be done. There's work to be done. This team,
being an Oilers fan is painful sometimes, but it's fun sometimes.
You didn't learn that.
This team has the ability to do it. This team has the horses on the team already, and it's only going to get better because there's some time to play this offseason.
All right. I do want to end off legitimately. I want to end off on a real positive. that I think we can all get behind. I want to say thank you. Before the season started, I wasn't going to do the beat cast this year. I had no interest in doing it. I'm over it. I hate beats. It was supposed to be, Dan, when did we start this bullshit? Like 4 years ago?
2018 in the
3 years
fall.
Ago. So 3 years ago. It started off as the sacrifice for 500. I was going to eat a can of beets after an Oilers loss until they got to 500. They never got to blah, 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 blah. And it's carried on now for 3 years. I had no interest in doing it this year. I had zero interest. So before the season started, we were talking about this on Real Life about what could I do? Should I just do a broadcast or should I do something different entirely or whatever? And then the idea came up as, why don't we get people to donate money to the Edmonton Food Bank? And instead of just eating beets, they can make a recommendation. So this year I've just taken shots of clam juice. I did jackfruit, which I didn't even know was a thing. I did escargot. I had these like other weird sardini type things or whatever they were. So there was just like, people were having fun with it and I was having fun with it, and it added a different layer, and we were getting people to donate money to the Edmonton Food Bank. So I had a goal of $1,000. I thought, you know what, 56 game season, $1,000, people will throw $10, $20 here and there. That'd be great. So I did the total this morning, and the total from the year came out to $1,310. So I tweeted that out just to say thank you to everybody that donated money. There's a lot of people that probably could have put that elsewhere, but they sent it to the Edmonton Food Bank. And then the Edmonton Food Bank responded with saying, thank you so much for the entertainment and the support. This donation could go towards purchasing approximately 227 kilograms of food, which is more than 1,392 times as heavy as a hockey puck. And that was from the Edmonton Food Bank. So the real positive here from the end of the season that I just want to end this off with is to say thank you to everybody that spent your money and donated your money to the Edmonton Food Bank as part of the stupid post-game show that we came up with about 3 years ago. And I think that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool to raise some money for good. And we know that the Edmonton Food Bank is going to do a lot with it. And I just wanted to say thanks. I wanted to say thanks because you didn't have to donate. You don't have to watch, you don't have to participate, but you do. And I'm very grateful for it. We're going to do it again next year. We'll figure out another way to get some money raised for the Edmonton Food Bank. I don't know what it'll look like, but we'll get there. And that's a positive. I think we can all appreciate how the nation, no matter what it is, always steps up and does the right thing. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for your donations. Thank you to the Edmonton Food Bank for playing along with us. They would retweet, they would favorite, they would comment, they would chime in. So thank you to everybody for participating in that. Just to close it out, got to say thanks again. Sherwood Ford, Skip the Dishes, Cornerstone Insurance, and Deuce Vodka for making this possible. This is not what we had planned. We had planned 2 episodes a week throughout the playoffs, and we got to do one.
No. Why?
We got to do one. And obviously, we're all gutted. This isn't the way this was supposed to go. But that's life in the streets. And we'll be back on Friday with our usual scheduled program. We're going to start looking ahead. But for Rick, we're going to end this off and let us all stew in our misery if we like. If you want to be positive, hit us up. ON Radio Podcast. Or if you're like Rick and say, get your positive bullshit out of here. It's only been a day. I want to hear
it's
that
cathartic. It's cathartic to mourn this for a while. So let's sit here and let it soak in for a little while. And then on the outside of this, we'll turn back into the everything's positive, and we're going to win the Stanley Cup next year. But for now, I'm going to sit here. and stew in this for a while, and become a better person from it.
I apologize for making an analogy about dead pets. That was uncalled for and rude.
As Shane Corson told us, one Joey Moss would say all the time, "Feel good. Why not?"
Just leave it there. I'm Bag Milk, Nation Dan, Rick, Tyler, your Chuck. This was the lone playoff episode of Oilers Nation Radio.
We'll go for a high score of 2 next year.
Yeah, we'll really shoot the moon on next year. You never know though. Maybe we'll do a bonus for maybe the draft or free agency or something. I don't know. Last year we did a podcast Oilers free agency day, and we had a good time. So maybe we have that to look forward to.
Next year, Mission 22, we should do 2 episodes after game 1. So we just guarantee we get 2 episodes in and change the mojo.
No, you know what you're going to do next for Mission 22, Dan. What we're going to do is we're going to start recording 7 days a week so that we can. There's no possible fucking way that we're going to miss anything.
All right. Also, say goodbye to my beautiful playoff mustache, everybody. It will not be here next time we speak.
You should probably tweet that so that everybody can appreciate it.
I'm surprised it's not gone already.
Yeah, it'll be gone. It'll be gone by tomorrow. So
documented.
There we go. There's the debrief episode of Oilers Nation Radio. Not what we planned, but we made it through this together. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys on Friday.
Shout out Rick's dead soul.
Best wishes.
To Oilers Nation Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media to stay up to date and never miss a podcast.